Hey, hey everyone that might be watching the video on the live stream. My name is Andrew Button. I'm founder and CEO of Mashup Lab. And what we thought we'd do today would be to share a little bit of sort of background around my own entrepreneurial journey, and then talk about a program that we've been running across Canada and into the US now, particularly for entrepreneurs in rural places, and specifically for entrepreneurs with various kinds of abilities, and a program that we've been in partnership with the Entrepreneurs with Disabilities program through the Community Futures Network, and a little bit about how that opportunity and that program came to be, and what we're up to now. So before I dive into sort of the nuts and bolts of that particular program, what I thought I'd do is again just share my screen and go through a little bit of background and context of where all this came from. So Kasar, if you can just give me a thumbs up that you can see the screen share, okay? Fantastic. So my story goes a little bit like this. If anybody is familiar with the resettlement in Newfoundland, you'll recognize this picture. So this is a picture of a house from the island that my dad was born on in Newfoundland, being floated down the harbor to the mainland through a whole sort of resettlement program, where the government of Newfoundland at the time said, all of the people that were living on all of these little rural islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, we're only going to be delivering services to folks on the mainland. So if you want those services, you had to figure out a way to get you and your family there. And instead of just abandoning everything they had on those islands, they actually literally lift those houses up off their foundations, moved them onto barges, and floated them down the harbor to the places and the new communities that they would call home. So when I was growing up, we actually still had a family cottage on that island. So I spent my big portion of my years growing up in places like this, in rural Newfoundland, and lots of other sort of small towns, and got to spend my days while on those islands with the local fishermen that worked there. And those fishermen, while few of them had much more than a grade 5 or grade 6 education, some of them were, or they were some of the most innovative, resourceful people that I'd ever met in my life, and their wives, like, even more so. So I got a really early education around the potential of people that may oftentimes be overlooked and underestimated in a lot of ways, and people that may be dismissed for all kinds of reasons. And it was really from that place that I began to think about this idea of Mashup Lab. So before starting Mashup Lab 10 years ago, I spent 15 years in various sort of rural economic development roles. And in those roles, like, this was sort of the picture we had in our mind of what the entrepreneurial journey kind of looked like. And you have the picture at the top where it's a very clear, straight plan, everything goes as normal. But then you have the reality of all of the twists and turns and ups and downs and pitfalls and things you have to do to get over things. And I can say that this is a pretty accurate picture of my own entrepreneurial journey. It rarely does it follow the straight line plan. It is more the bottom half of this picture. But it was in my economic development role that I actually realized that there was a part of this picture that was completely missing. And it was this sort of journey that an entrepreneur goes through, that most of the programs and services and supports that we were building around those folks was mainly dedicated once somebody sort of hopped on that bike for the first time and started pedaling and are kind of on their way through this journey at various stages. But I began to realize that this was the part of the picture that was actually missing. This messy, sort of all over the place, I have a million ideas, I'm not quite sure what to do with them, part that really wasn't being captured and supported in the ways that that I thought that could be. So it was in that sort of messy, squiggly space where I began to realize that there was just a massive pool of untapped entrepreneurial talent sitting on the sidelines, not necessarily plugging into all of the programs and services and supports that we were actually designing for folks. And what we've learned over the last 10 years is that the pool of people that are actually on the sidelines, not plugging into that whole sort of ecosystem of supports, is actually exponentially bigger than the number of folks that have hopped onto that bike and started pedaling for the first time. And it was really in that realization and that space of like, how do we get the attention of people that, again, maybe a little bit overlooked and somewhat underestimated? And how do we design and build a program that really gets them off the sidelines and into this game? Because I felt like if we could do a good job at that and support those folks in the right ways, that a whole new world of opportunity opens up for them, but also a whole new pool of potential opens up for the communities that I was really trying to help. And that's where sort of Mashup Lab was born. And the first 2 or 3 years, we did lots of experimenting of, there's lots of different ways you can go and try to solve that problem. And we experimented with lots of things, lots of in-person events and programs of various sort of shapes and sizes. But the thing that we landed on that was actually producing the best results and some of the most unexpected results was what we call our Dream Business Program. And so we market it to the folks in places that have ideas for new businesses as our Dream Business Program. And when we're talking to our economic development friends, we call it our Virtual Business Incubator, because that's the sort of language that they're familiar with and things that they can compare it to in terms of what might be similar. So they have some context for that. So you'll hear me sort of use those two names, our Dream Business Program and Virtual Business Incubator, kind of intertwined and synonymously. So the real simple focus for that program was to get that to activate that untapped entrepreneurial talent sitting on the sidelines in rural places and get them off the sidelines and onto that field. And in terms of like the structure of that program, it's, again, this was probably 5 years ago now that we started to really hone in on this particular program as a thing that we felt could have the biggest impact in all the work that we were doing. And right out of the gate, I made the decision that I wanted to figure out how to deliver this program 100% online, despite the fact that we were, focusing on, folks that live in rural places and the challenges that those people had getting access to reliable, affordable, high-speed internet. So it was like, if we're going to go do this thing, we may as well solve the really big problem and tackle it head on. Right out of the gate. So that's what we did. So the Mashup Lab Dream Business Program is delivered 100% online over the course of 6 weeks. And we've designed it as a cohort-based model. So we bring a group of usually up to 15 people together in a cohort that will go through those 6 weeks together as a group. And usually those folks meet, every week for about 90 minutes as a group, and then they can access unlimited one-on-one coaching in between those sessions. Sometimes people get everything they need in those group sessions. Other folks need a little bit more support and a little bit more help figuring out how the things we talk about in the group relate to their specific situation and their specific business idea and all those sorts of things. And then at the end of those 6 weeks, we bring everybody together in what we call our celebration night. And that's a chance for us to do exactly that. Celebrate the people that have gone through this process, that put in the time and work, and have, done what a lot of people don't do, which is actually do something with the idea that they have instead of just sitting on it and waiting for the right time. We celebrate the folks that actually take action to say, hey, I'm going to give this business idea thing a try and see if I can figure out how to turn my great idea into a great business. So oftentimes those 15 folks or that group of people is a mix of people that have never been an entrepreneur before are working on their very first business idea, or maybe they have 3 or 4 ideas. They're not quite sure which one to work on first. Combined with folks that may be doing something as a hobby right now, maybe selling to some friends and family over the holidays, going to a local farmer's market and setting up a table and selling some things. But they're doing things at a smaller scale now, and they're trying to figure out how to turn that into the way they make a living in the world, and sort of a full-time business. And combined with folks that may have been in business and very experienced entrepreneurs for the last 10 years, but their world has changed around them, and the way they were making money over the last 10 years isn't going to be the way they're making money in the next 10 years, but they have some ideas for what that new future might look like, but it's very different than the things that they've been doing in the past. So they're not quite sure what that business model might be. So it's a combination of all those folks. And the thing that really sort of stitches everybody together in that group is everybody's sort of at this place of like uncharted territory. They have an idea of what the future might look like, and they have an idea of what they might do next, but they're not 100% sure. So we use those 6 weeks to guide people through that process of again trying to figure out if there's what is the great business to be built around the great idea that they have, and happy to dive into more details around that if folks are interested and curious to learn more. So it was back in around 2018 that we actually started doing this on a very small scale here in one part of rural Nova Scotia. And even though the numbers of people we were putting through this program in the run of a year were actually quite small, the results we were getting with those folks were actually pretty remarkable. And that got the attention of some folks at the province of Nova Scotia. And they said, Andrew, we're not 100% sure exactly what it is you're doing down there, but it seems to be working. It seems to be working really well. Do you think it's something you can roll out across the entire province of rural Nova Scotia? And that's exactly what we did. And again, this was back in 2017, 2018, where getting access to reliable, affordable, high-speed internet in rural Nova Scotia had some pretty significant challenges. And we were embarking on this journey to deliver a 100% virtual program focused on helping people in rural places start companies. So there was definitely some big challenges and some big questions that we had to work through. And a lot of folks were unsure if we were actually going to be able to pull this off. And we had some questions ourselves, but we knew that we had the right team of people, and I surrounded myself with a really amazing group of humans that have helped me with Mashup Lab along the way to give it a shot. And make a long story short, we did run into some challenges that we had to overcome, some obstacles. We had to deal with a lot of uncertainty of being like, unsure of how things were gonna play themselves out. And that's a big part of my own entrepreneurial journey. But over those 2 years, we ended up working with just over 200 entrepreneurs that ended up starting over 100 companies in over 60 communities in every corner of our province. And while those results were amazing and in a relatively short period of time, they weren't all that surprising to me, to be honest. I knew that talent was out there. We just had to figure out a way to activate it. But there were a few things that were really surprising to me. And one of them was this. Well over 80% of those folks had never signed up for a business or entrepreneurship program ever before. And we got really curious as to why that was. So we started to ask folks, and in their own words, they essentially said to us, while there may be lots of programs that are available, some of which are even accessible to me, and some of which are even delivered in my own backyard, this felt like a better fit for me. This program was more approachable to me. It felt like it was more for me, and the way in which we delivered the program, the way in which we talked about the program, the invitation we put out for people to sign up, all of those things felt like a better fit for this group of entrepreneurs that weren't really plugging into all the other things that may have been available to them. And we've seen that consistently over these last last 3 years as well. Pretty much bang on to that 80% mark. The other thing that really jumped out for us, and again, we got lucky with some of these things. This wasn't something we actually went out seeking for. It was sort of what showed up, and then we only learned sort of after the fact why that was. But 75% of those folks were women, and half of them were women with kids under the age of 12. So again, there were things about what we did and how we did it that made it feel much more approachable for them, made them feel much more comfortable bringing their children onto the call and not having to apologize for that. We had new mothers with newborns that were breastfeeding, and we made that just normalize that whole process. And in terms of people just being able to shut off their camera when they needed to and step away and come back in and not feel like they've missed a whole lot or that they were going to be scrutinized because of it. We just welcomed all of that, and we just understood that oftentimes the entrepreneur and their life is sort of one thing, and it's just something that we have to manage. We may as well manage it through this process as well. And then the final thing that really stood out for us was that 40% of those people self-identified as being a part of some sort of minority group, whether that was sort of newcomers or an entrepreneur living with a differently abled and a disability in some cases, part of the LGBTQ2S plus community, but there were they identified as being part of some sort of minority population in terms of the categories they fit in. And again, it wasn't something that we went out seeking for, but what we did and how we did it was resonating with that particular group of entrepreneurs. And we ended up through that process really working mostly one-on-one with folks, making some accommodations of things that people had to accommodate. And it was through that process that really opened up the opportunities that we've been exploring over these last 36 months, specifically with the Community Futures organizations in Western Canada, and particularly funded through the Entrepreneurs with Disabilities program, where we've really done a much deeper dive into the design and the facilitation of that 6-week Dream Business program to really suit and fit the needs of the people that we're working with through that process, and working with those partners at Community Futures to really understand what are the adaptations or accommodations we may need to put in place to allow somebody to fully participate in the process. And they've been amazing partners with us in this. This isn't necessarily our expertise. We're learning lots as we go through this, but they're bringing lots of expertise to the table to help us figure those things out, and helping us work with those entrepreneurs that may need things slightly differently in order for them to get the most out of the program. So we take great pride in in the work that we're doing with folks that are participating, and really doing everything we can to try and accommodate those needs. So just to sort of wrap this part of things up, just to give you a bit of a snapshot of sort of how these last 36 months have panned out. Again, we've now worked with well over 500 entrepreneurs and put through this process that have gone on to start and grow well over 400 businesses and 300 communities across, again, both rural Canada and the US. And there's two opportunities that we currently have that I really want to put on people's radar. And it's these two things here. So our partners with Community Futures in Western Canada have developed and designed and received funding for what they're calling their Business Builder program. So it's delivered again through the Entrepreneurs with Disabilities program. So edpbusiness.ca/business-builder. Our Dream Business program is one element or one component of that larger program. So if it's something that you're interested in and curious to learn more about, I encourage you to check out the website. And because we can share these links with you to share in the comments and where the videos get posted and all those sorts of things after the call. But I really encourage folks to check that out and apply for that program. We'll be doing our part of that program early in 2024, and there may be opportunities beyond that as well. The second opportunity I'll point out for folks is, again, a partnership with an organization called Onside, based here in Nova Scotia, but doing work nationally, where we were successful in securing funding from the Women's Entrepreneurship Strategy Fund to roll our Dream Business program out to every province and territory across the country. So this is, again, a program specific to non-binary women identifying entrepreneurs that need some help and support to get their ideas moving forward. And again, this is something that's available to all provinces and territories. Our next cohort of those programs, both of those programs are going to be coming up in February, and those spots and those seats tend to fill up fast. So if folks are curious and want to get in on those things, I really encourage people to go to those links and go through the application process to get yourself into one of those seats, and we would love to work with you. So, Kazar, I'll sort of pause things there. I don't know if there's anything in that you any questions that have come up for you personally. I don't know if there's any other questions that may have come in from folks online, but yeah, I'll just sort of open it up for you.
Actually, I had joined your program a few years back.
Oh, fantastic. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really nice program. Yeah.
What did you enjoy most about it, Kazar?
Main thing, I had no idea how to do anything. So I just had an idea. We wanted to start a daycare for my wife.
Okay.
So although we didn't go through with it, but it was really like the help with making the business plan and everything. So it was really helpful.
Awesome. No, I'm glad you had a good experience with it. Do you happen to remember who your facilitator was?
Nicole.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. I love it.
Clark.
Fantastic. That's
a really nice program. But here financially it is very hard to move ahead. So that's why we gave up the idea.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point to bring up, because oftentimes people will go through this process and not start their business for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes it has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not a business could be viable or financially feasible. Sometimes they just realize this isn't going to fit with my life right now, and this is not the right time for me to pursue this idea. Even if it's a great idea and it could be very profitable, it's not the right business for me. And we look at that as just as much of a success as folks that go through the program and actually start their own dream business. Because for people that realize at some way through those 6 weeks that this isn't the right idea for me, or now is not the right time, we've just saved them thousands of hours of their life and potentially tens of thousands of dollars of their money and potentially somebody else's money by taking a little bit of time to go through this process in a bit of a guided, facilitated, and intentional way. So, so sometimes people feel like if they don't start a business at the end of those 6 weeks, or they don't set down their path, that they've somehow failed. And I couldn't disagree more. It was just now you get to take everything you've learned going through that process and apply it to the next idea that you have, the next 10 ideas that you have. And it's I think the tools you get going through that 6 weeks with the Dream Mashup Lab Dream Business program can follow you in whatever path you choose to take, whether starting your own business or finding work doing something else, and that's a win for us.
Yeah, best thing is your program even helps in a way like to tell you if your idea is good or not. So, is it possible to do that? Is it practical to do that? So it's
well, I think Yeah, we've sort of gotten away from telling people whether or not their idea is good or not.
No,
I think
not
what
directly, but
yeah,
like,
but the process will tell you. Your
yeah, the
customer, your
process would tell
potential
you.
customers will
Yeah,
tell you. And because we've had folks come through the process where, and at one point I was actually interviewing everybody before we accept them in. And I would get off the call sometimes and think to myself, wow, there's no business here. This is going nowhere. I don't see how this person is ever going to make money doing this. And they knock it out of the park and prove me completely wrong and have a thriving business and have hired several people and are doing all kinds of amazing things. And on the flip side, I've gotten off that call and said, this is an absolute home run. This is a no-brainer. This is an absolutely viable business, and it goes nowhere. I think oftentimes we may either we may discount or predict things poorly at the beginning. We just never know, because there's just so many variables that go into whether or not a business can be viable and successful for a particular entrepreneur. And and we've been doing this long enough that we've actually seen how things progress sometimes. And sometimes somebody comes down with a health condition that prevents them from actually working in the business, or they teamed up with a co-founder or business partner and they couldn't get along, and that's what caused the partnership to dissolve and the business to go. It had absolutely nothing to do with the market or the potential or the business model, the pricing, or any of that business stuff. It had to do with all sorts of other factors that that went into the entrepreneur's decision to either pursue it or not. And I think that's the most important thing for folks to remember is, it is about opening up what might be possible, and then giving the entrepreneur the opportunity to choose whether or not to pursue it or not, and to move on to do something else. And that's I think that's a part of the story that oftentimes gets missed. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to share it.
Okay, it's a really nice program. I have joined it, so I know.
Fantastic. Is there anything else that came up for you, Kasar, in terms of questions? Anything else you think I should share with the folks that may be tuning in?
No, main thing is you have your links and everything, so anybody can contact you.
For sure. So I'll share those with you after the call as well, just in case they need to get posted along with the video. But folks that may be jotting these things down as you're watching the video, by all means, my email address is there. I share it because I expect people to use it, and I try my best to reply as quickly as I can, or at least put you in touch with somebody on our team that can get back to you. So if you have questions around either the program or just about your idea in general, feel free to reach out, and we'll look to get you connected with the right folks if I can't be helpful myself. So thanks everybody for tuning in and listening, and thanks for the opportunity to come chat with Connector.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, hopefully somebody will contact you.
Sounds fantastic. I'll stop my screen share there if you like.
Yep. Okay, so if you are done, we can end the call.
Sounds great. Good to finally meet you.
Yeah, nice meeting you too.
All right.